I have no idea. Now we are looking at the press, ignoring who's really behind all of this. You have the press talking about a photo shoot with the president in front of a church, one of the most historic churches in America. And yes, they used tear gas. That was called a chemical weapon by the press on protesters to clear the square so the president could go get a photo op. Well, let me ask you this. Joe Biden is going to the funeral of a man he never knew. Is that a photo op? What's really happening on our streets? And is it too late to save America? How do we do it? Somebody who has been warning the black community now strongly for the last couple of years that this was coming before the election is our guest tonight. It's Candace Owens. Welcome, Candace. I guess the first question for you is truth, justice, and the American way. Is it on the ropes? Is it in the hospital, or is it in the morgue?
Oh, my goodness. I mean, it is really a sobering time to be an American right now. And in my opinion, to be a Black American, it's sort of devastating because what we're really doing right now is sort of recreating the wheel. And when I say recreating the wheel, I mean that the thing that originally and initially devastated Black communities were the riots in the mid-1960s across Detroit and across Chicago that look very much like what we're seeing today, done in Black communities, some of it being authored by Black people themselves, burning down their own neighborhoods. And what ended up happening as a consequence was that white business owners packed up and left. And that is what decimated the Black communities. There were no jobs. That's exactly what's going to happen now. And so I've spent this week realizing that we potentially just signed up for another 60 years of Black poverty. And all of this could have been avoided if people had just been more conscious of the fact that we are in an election cycle and there are powers that want to make this race rioting happen.
So, Candace, you say that, you've put, this has put the Black community back into another 60-year period of poverty. But I don't think it's just that. I mean, we forget. It's hard for me to imagine that just a week ago, I couldn't imagine talking about anything else but COVID and what was being done to small businesses. They were on the ropes already. Now, with New York being looted, who's going to have their store there if you can't get control? Who's going to be able to open a small business if this continues? It's not just COVID now. It's looting and rioting. What are these cities thinking?
I don't know what they're thinking, and I've really grappled with that question, especially looking at New York, which is supposed to be this hub of business and finances. And there's been less and less of an incentive, and I say this as someone who lived there for 7 years and moved out. The rent is getting higher, the streets are getting dirtier as they start to appeal to homeless people by creating policies that say you can't move a homeless person from their spot, the police can no longer intervene. Crime has been running rampant in a way that it hasn't been in a long time. And on top of that, you have telling people they can't go to work for months, followed by incentivizing looting and rioting. Even looking at Bill de Blasio, his daughter, getting arrested for blocking traffic on that main street where the riots were taking place, and him saying that he's proud of her at the same time that he is disallowing the president to send in the National Guard to help garner control of the situation. You have to think that, it must just be an attack on America, and they're so short-sighted that all they want to do is defeat Donald Trump in November at the polls, and they're willing to inspire tyranny and anarchy in the process.
So do you think the Black Lives Matter people, or the people who were sincere about the killing of George Floyd, that were sincere, do you think they're even at any of these now? Has this been hijacked? No. Was this Black Lives Matter the whole time? What's happening?
Well, I think that the people that were very sincere about this, when you talk about Black Lives Matter, you have to talk about people that are just taking this as a hashtag and saying Black Lives Matter, and they're sincere and they're looking at a story and they're feeling bad. And then you have to talk about the organizational unit that is Black Lives Matter. I'm talking about the $33 million that George Soros' Open Society Foundation injected into Black Lives Matter when we first started seeing these protests and riots by them in 2016.
No, you're mistaken. George Soros and Open Society has tweeted just today that they don't give to any of these protests. That's not what they do.
Right, exactly. I went and asked them, so what exactly was the $33 million for? Because last I checked, Black Lives Matter isn't in office, it is in a school. So what exactly do they think this $33 million was going to go to this less than organized group of people that only protest, right? And so you have these people that are being funded, and this is why you're able to see, and it's not just Black Lives Matter. What we're seeing out there is Antifa. In my opinion, they're one and the same. I think these are the same organized protest groups, and they throw on an Antifa shirt on some days. If they're on a college campus, and they throw on a Black Lives Matter shirt. And those are the people that are at the core of this rioting and this dysfunction that we're seeing. And plus some tag-along people. I saw a lot of young people in the clips and in the videos. And I live in a city. I live in D.C., and some of these people look like they're just realizing that they can grab TVs for free at Target, and they're willing to do that and think it's a fun activity to do with their friends. So it's a combination of all three elements, but there's something much more sinister that is the undercurrent of all of this.
Okay, I want to get into that. And also, where can we even build a bridge? And I want to show you the example of Rush Limbaugh honestly trying to build a bridge with the Breakfast Club, and no bridges were being allowed at all. Are we that far away from each other? We'll get to more with Candace Owens here in just a second. Our sponsor is Home Title Lock. You wouldn't think, you know how to protect against somebody who is trying to loot your house. You got it. You got a gun. Maybe you have the security system. But when somebody wants to steal your house, this world is, I was just thinking about all of the things that have happened in just the last 6 months. It's insane. No one would believe this. It's like the craziest action movie I've ever seen. They can steal your house now, and all they do is they steal your title, they transfer it to them, they go to a bank, they take out a loan in your name under this mortgage, and use the house as collateral. The bank comes to collect. Well, they don't know who you are. You look to be a squatter because we have the title right here to the house. That's what home title theft is, and it's one of the fastest growing crimes. It is the fastest, or at least it was until the last couple of weeks ago, in New York City. There's only one company that can protect you from that, and that company is Home Title Lock. Get free 30 days protection to help you through the crisis. Use the code BECK when you go to HomeTitleLock.com. That's HomeTitleLock.com. Use the promo code BECK. So something extraordinary happened this week on a show carried by the premier radio networks, the same network that carries Rush Limbaugh. Rush Limbaugh phoned in to the Breakfast Club and wanted to talk about ways that people could come together and agree. And the thing that they could both agree on was that the death of George Floyd was horrific. And it was murder of one sort or another, at least manslaughter, and everyone involved should pay. But that wasn't good enough. Candace Owens is with us. Candace, did you hear or see or read any of this from Rush Limbaugh?
I did. I read it, and then I went and I found some clips of it, and I spoke with Charlemagne the God afterwards because I am in communication with him. And yes, I think it was a missed opportunity, but I think it is a good step in the right direction. I think a big part of the problem is that people are not exposed to one another. So it becomes very difficult, especially a show with such popularity as The Breakfast Club culturally has such cultural relevance. And they do a lot of good stuff on that show. Charlemagne the God has been pretty outspoken against Joe Biden. He's spoken about, his record as a senator and weighed it against the things things that he, proclaims to support or proclaims to be. But I think, with Rush Limbaugh, you have a guy who is incredibly intelligent, very well researched, and in a position where he's up against people that maybe don't have as many facts on their side, and you just kind of can feel that butting of the heads where I think a lot of pride, which didn't really serve the conversation. I'd like to see it repeated and done again, and perhaps just between Charlemagne the God and Rush Limbaugh coming together to have a more realistic conversation.
So, Candace, what struck me is when I watched it online, the ad that was embedded right before, I don't even remember the product, but I remember the first line, and it said, life isn't what happens to you, life is what you do with it. And the whole controversy here is white privilege. Is there white privilege? Of course there's white privilege. Of course it's privilege it's been this way for a very long time. I don't think it's intentional in most cases, but it doesn't matter if it's privileged or not. You are underprivileged. I am underprivileged in different ways, but in the same way, because of our point of view, we're not getting meetings that should be happening. I'm not getting a $100 million check from Netflix to make movies. It doesn't happen because we have a different point of view. So it's not the same, but I can understand it. If we can't, if
don't believe white privilege at all. I don't believe in white privilege at all.
You don't believe in it at all?
No, it's a
Talk to me about it.
Complete myth. It's something that was made up by postmodernists, to divide people. If you are not privileged because of the color of your skin, and I think, Glenn, that you just proved that by saying, "Oh, well, I'm not privileged because I have different thoughts." And the idea that somebody can step inside of a room and just because they're white, amazing things are going to happen to them. That's not the truth. When people come up with this idea of white privilege, they talk about the accomplishments that white people have versus black people. But are there other external factors that are contributing to that? Are the decisions that black people are making that are preventing us from getting ahead, as white people have done, or as white people are doing? Are we acting in the same mold as the people that are ahead of us? If you want to talk about Jewish Americans, foremost Asian Americans. You want to talk about white privilege not existing? Who does better than white Americans in this country? Asian Americans do. And this is why you never hear people talk about Asian Americans at all, is because they completely defeat the idea that there is white privilege in this country. They do better in every single lane than white people do. And you want to know why? Because they make better decisions than white people do. And you want to know why white people do better than black people? Because white people make better decisions as a whole than black people do. You get out of life what you put into it. And unfortunately, people don't like to talk about that because it's too tough of a conversation to have about what black Americans aren't doing right. We have policies like affirmative action, right, which mismatches us and puts us into school not based on our merit or what we know, but based on our skin color. And those are things that are actually, with time, disadvantaging black Americans because it's not allowing us to do the hard work that we need to do to get on the level playing field.
So I agree with you on that. Booker T is one of my heroes. I love Booker T. Washington. I love his story. He shows that if you apply yourself, you really can change the world. He would be beside himself if he could see the status of a black America today. But he also foresaw it because people in the black community, and of course the people in the Democrats at the time, they wanted to have a real plantation. But so many people moved on that plantation, and now they don't want to get off that plantation.
That is correct. That is exactly correct. And like I said, people are comfortable. What white privilege is it's an excuse for black Americans not to apply themselves. And that's why I reject the narrative. Now, if you told me that two people, one black, one white, born into the same economic circumstances, do you think Malia Obama is suffering because of the color of her skin?
No.
Or Sasha Obama is suffering because of the color of her skin? No. Why? Because they had parents that became the president of the United States. They have privileges that most white people will never know in this country. And that is not because of the color of their skin. It's because of decisions that their parents made. My mother didn't graduate high school. My father was an alcoholic. So the circumstances of where I started in life is not because of the color of my skin, but because of decisions that were made before I came into this world. And those are the discussions that we need to have about how we fix the fabric of Black America. And those are decisions that we are making. There's no white person that told my mother that she wasn't allowed to graduate high school, that she had to have her first child at 17. It becomes too easy of an excuse, and we have to stop handing my community excuses. We have to stop handing my community catchy phrases like white privilege. It's hard work. It's not easy. It sucks. And Shelby Steele does a great job of talking about how sometimes the hardest thing in the world is being handed freedom after years of oppression, which is what Black Americans went through, because suddenly you realize that they were saying that you were not equal, and suddenly you have to contend with the fact that they're right, that they're better at you in math and science and reading and writing because you've had years of oppression. But the only way to actually get up ahead and to no longer lag is to do the hard work. And we've not been able to do the hard work because everybody keeps giving us excuses. So I'll have to tell you, no, Glenn, there is no such thing as white privilege. I have to deny that because I want Black Americans to get ahead, and we have to.
I love being on the other side of the argument with you, and my only thought on this is I will recognize that over time, just like you're recognizing that over time people made bad decisions, over time people also were oppressed in ways that I, as a white man, I've never been pulled over for driving a nice car. So there are different things in our communities that I think you can call it white privilege or just differences of the way people are viewed. Doesn't matter. But there are experiences that I never went through. But on the other hand, I didn't have it. Yeah, I didn't have it either. I didn't have everything handed to me. Yeah.
I've never been pulled in the car for being Black either. And that's the thing, is that what you see happen is there's this antiquated argument of things that went on, in the 50s and the 60s that were very much real. We're now in 2020. The Black Americans that are growing up today are not going through that, but they're being handed the excuses, from years of oppression that did exist. Sure, if my grandfather wanted to talk to you about white privilege, then I'd say, okay, he's a great person to have that conversation with. But if you didn't grow up during that time and you're accepting that this is all real now and today, it's disingenuous. It just isn't.
100% agree, and that's where we won't get agreement from many people, is that this is not the America of 1965, and that racism is not an American problem, it's a human problem. It's a problem inside all of us. We see something that's different, we don't like it, we shun away from it, or we are afraid of it, or whatever. And racism exists throughout the world, and this is not America 1965. And it's, but yet we're made to feel like it is in 1965 all over again. And somehow or another, George Floyd has been made into a martyr, where I think what happened was wrong. I think the cop that did it was wrong. I don't want to see that happening to a Black guy, a white guy, any guy. I don't care if he just stabs somebody. If he's down on the ground and you have him, don't put your knee on his neck and kill him. That's ridiculous. Our police should not be doing that. However, this is a guy with a very long record and a very long criminal record. He was said to be cleaning up his life by his family. I hope that was true. But he was also high on fentanyl and dropped a bag of drugs that he was carrying at the time. Is this really the guy that Black America, they were very careful to pick Rosa Parks. Is this the symbol of Black America today?
I'm going to say yes, it is a symbol of Black America today, and it's a symbol of a broken culture in Black America today, and that people are not willing to talk about, again, how we contribute to our own demise. The fact that he has been held up as a martyr sickens me. George Floyd was not a good person. I don't care who wants to spin that. I don't care how CNN wants to make you think he changed his life around, or MSNBC wants you to believe he was just, after his sixth stint in prison, I think, or fifth stint in prison, really going to change things around. It's just not true. I mean, you look at this situation. Here's how I tried to see it through the eyes of the young woman who was pregnant in 2007 when a guy knocked on her door pretending that he worked for the water department. She realizes he doesn't work for the water department, attempts to slam the door in his face, only to have a Ford, pull up with 4 more men that get out of the car, one of which is George Floyd. George Floyd slams his way into her cracked door as she's trying to close it. He takes out a pistol and he holds it to her pregnant belly, threatening her and pushing her into her living room. While she is in the living room, he has another one of his armed buddies keep an eye on her as they raid her house looking for drugs and looking for money. They did not find drugs, but they did take her cell phone, and I think they took some cash, and he escaped. Fortunately, the neighbor who observed this caught the license plate, and the police were able to track down the driver of that Ford, which was George Floyd. So that was, I think, his 5th arrest, the one that he went to prison for 5 years. This woman now has to watch this man be held up as a hero. Okay, this once pregnant woman, I can't even think about the trauma. Okay, held up as a hero and a martyr for causes, a wonderful human being that was just about to get his life together. Sure, he was high on methamphetamine and fentanyl.
Let's separate. I want to make sure we're on the same page here. So let's separate this. If this was a white guy, people would be upset, maybe. If I saw the video of what I saw happen to George Floyd, I don't care what he did. You shouldn't do that. That's reckless behavior from our cops. If it happened to a white guy, you would hear all of the bad things about him, and people would say, hey, we should stop it. But it wouldn't be riots, et cetera, et cetera. And we would not be holding him up as a hero. He would be an example of police brutality. Are we on the same page?
Well, we are on the
that you still have.
You have, because
we're not
white
on the same
Americans,
page.
Jewish Americans, Asian Americans, any other group of Americans do not do what Black Americans do. And as I was telling you, I was reading Shelby Steele, and he talks about the fact that Black Americans are the only culture of people that appeal to the bottom denominator of their society, meaning that the majority of Black Americans are not criminals. The majority of Black Americans are trying to do the right thing. And yet the only time our community comes together and is outraged and tries to affect change is in defense of the bottom denominator of our society. Okay, this guy's been spent 5 stints in prison. How many people can say they've spent 5 stints in prison and can be expected to be held up like a martyr? Again, not a defense for Derek Chauvin. I have no defense for Derek Chauvin. I also have no inclination to hold up George Floyd as a hero. Okay, you have a criminal who was committing a crime, who was on drugs, had drugs, and then had a bad person who abused his position of power and was on this person's neck too long. Me personally, I have no use beyond saying this is wrong in this video to the cop, and I hope the family gets justice for this incident for George Floyd. I don't. But unfortunately, in my community, we spend all of our time and energy uplifting people that are criminals. It is the amount of martyr criminals that we have in Black America is incredible.
So I think, Candace, we are on the same. This is the problem with this, is nobody is separating things. Like, I don't know anything about George Floyd other than what I'm told in the press. And one, he's an angel, and the other, he's a devil. I don't know. Honestly, I don't really care. What I care about is that a guy was killed by a cop being reckless, and I don't care the skin color or anything else. If George Floyd was stopped by police and he was a drug user, then he should pay the penalty the way he should have paid the penalty by going to court and everything else. If it meant him going to prison again, that's what should have happened. End of his story. The other story is this is abusive. There's the exact same story that nobody paid attention to that happened in Dallas a few years ago. Nobody cared. It was a white guy. Nobody cared. Somebody should have cared then, too.
It happens more often to white people. I mean, you're looking at just last year, 9 unarmed black suspects ended in police fatality incidents, and 19, white American suspects ended in police brutality incidents. And don't think, you have people who aren't good at math that will say, oh, but white people represent 60% of the population and black people are only 13. No, I'm talking about if you look at the incidence of how many encounters each race is having with police, you are 25% more likely to have a fatal encounter when committing a violent crime if you are white than if you are black. Okay, so police brutality as a target towards black Americans is a myth. It's a myth. The numbers are there. Anybody can look at them. It's an absolute myth. It's a problem every time it happens.
The great thing is it comes from this study that you're actually, I think, quoting is from a black professor at Harvard who said it was the most stunning study that he has ever read or seen, and he did it, that showed actually the cops are less willing to pull the trigger on a black man than a white man. Because they've paid heavy prices on it. So whites are actually more likely to get killed in a violent confrontation with a cop. Back with Candace Owens here in a second, and I want to spend some time on that plantation that right now Joe Biden is saying you're not black unless you vote for me. You want to talk about a plantation, 34% agree with him. How? When we come back. First, let me tell you about Built Bar. Built Bar is a protein bar. Yeah, I know. I mean, picture health. You don't get a body like this without working hard. I've got to lift that spoon a lot. Anyway, my wife is a health nut, and I told her last night, right before she hit me, that she was exercising. She sprained her ankle. The cows were chasing her on the ranch. She was just all she was trying to do was run up a hill and just get fit. And I told her, that's what happens. You almost killed by killer cows, and you sprain your ankle. Me, I'm fine with my bowl of ice cream. Anyway, Built Bar is a protein bar. She's been eating them for years and saying, yeah, and I never did until we were out of anything sweet in the house, and it was there in the refrigerator, and I was like, I want to try one of these. Don't tell my wife, but I asked for Built Bar to come on because she came home and I said, these are fantastic. These are just like candy bars. Oh my gosh, she hit me so hard. Built Bar. Save $10 off your order right now at BuiltBar.com. That's BuiltBar.com. Make sure you use the promo code Beck. They're healthy. They're good for you. And they taste like candy bars. BuiltBar.com. Promo code Beck.
I'm going to school. First day, you can't be late. Tony. You're bunching new shoes for the first day of school. Come on.
This is the same thing that happened to George Floyd, and no one cared when Tony died.
I think he's out cold now. Yeah,
I think he's out cold. They actually laugh about it when they stuff his body into the ambulance. Gee, I hope I didn't kill him. But again, nobody cared. Candace Owens is with us. And Candace, I want to play some audio that Joe Biden threw in at the end of an interview with the Breakfast Club, if I'm not mistaken, where he was talking about how if you're black, you have to vote for me. Listen.
Listen, you got to come see us when you come to New York, VP Biden.
I will.
It's a long way until November. We got more questions.
You got more questions. I tell you, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, and you ain't black.
It don't have nothing to do with Trump. It has to do with the fact I want something for my community. I would love to see.
Take a look at my record, man. I extended the voting rights 25 years. I have a record that is second to none.
Okay, stop. First of all, I don't think that Joe Biden ever uses the word ain't unless he's talking down to a black man. When I heard that, the people around me said, wow, he's done. He's not done. 35% of African Americans believe that. They have come out and said it in a recent poll that he's right. What kind of upside down world are we living in, Candace? And how can we possibly break through to people if they believe that kind of stuff?
I think first and foremost, I was really happy about that moment when I saw it because it was really a vindication for me and everything that I've been telling people that these politicians that come around and knock on your door every 4 years, they don't care about your thoughts. They don't care about your ideas. If you're Black American, they're not here to try to understand what your problems are. And they're certainly not aiming to fix the problems because they will just assume that if you are Black and your life is problematic, then you will vote for Democrats to come rescue you and save you. So this moment was incredible. And I think it definitely, despite what the polls are showing, it definitely had a tremendous earthquake in the Black community because this is, again, a very cultural show. I know Charlemagne the God himself was very displeased with this moment, as were his listeners, who said, what's the point? Yes, there are some people defending it, like what's that woman's name, Jameel Hill, who says, oh, he's just joking around. It's fine. But what he really is saying is that you don't have a choice. And if you don't have a choice, your vote doesn't matter. Your ideas don't matter. You're just a part of a larger program. They just need you to go and do what you're supposed to do and support Democrat candidates. Now, what upset me the most is what you pointed to, was the switching up of the way that he speaks, right? To make himself more relatable. I guess he can't speak in proper English and he has to say ain't because Black Americans don't understand that big bad contraction aren't, right? So ain't is better. I think he really exposed the Democrats for exactly what they are in this moment. And I don't necessarily believe the polls that 45% of Black Americans are still behind him or agree with that notion.
That would be fantastic if you're actually accurate on that one. I hope you are. The president his polling numbers are going down. You told me at one point that you thought Donald Trump would win with, I think you said in your wildest dreams, your stretch goal, it would be 30% of the African-American vote. Now all those jobs are gone. We have this going on. What do you think is going to happen with Donald Trump?
I think at the start of this year, he had at a minimum 25% of the Black vote, and I think they knew that. I think they run their internal polls, and the Democrats know exactly how he was trending, and this is why they are launching an economic war on America right now. Because that's exactly what this is. This is a civil war going on right now, launched by Democrats and their leftist ranks to take down the economy because it was the strongest element. Now, here's what I will say. A lot can happen between now and November, and a lot will, because that will be ordained by the Democrat Party themselves. But I will say that Black Americans are alive to what's going on. You've showed several clips throughout this show. I've put up many clips on my Twitter showing Black Americans alive to the fact that these are Antifa leftists that are rioting and spraying Black Lives Matter on Starbucks walls. There are Black women going up to them saying, stop doing that. You're trying to get us blamed for this. So I think they've launched the war in the Black community, hoping that it would help them and that Blacks would blame Trump. But they're not blaming Trump for the coronavirus. Americans know that it was the Democrat governors that wanted to keep this coronavirus thing going forever when Trump wanted to open up. The America knows that these riots are being orchestrated by the left. I think that the Democrat strategy going into 2020 is to try to convince people not to believe their own eyes. And I don't think that's a strong strategy. I think they're accidentally waking up more people than I could have.
I will tell you that I find it interesting that all of the governors that were arresting people for going to church or trying to fine people and saying how we all had to stay in forever are the ones that don't have a problem with Antifa on the streets looting and rioting. We should either be seeing a lot of death from coronavirus with all of these people and in all of these major cities, or we should be asking ourselves, were these Democrats that cared so much about coronavirus and all of us staying in and now don't seem to care all that much about the rioting and looting, were they lying to us the whole time?
They were, and I called it from the very beginning. I was the most vocal person against it. Even I disagreed with Trump, even for the 2 weeks that he, made it a federal policy and did the shutdown before he sent it down to the states. I said, this is the wrong action. None of the data made any sense. Nothing the epidemiologists were saying made any sense. There was no consensus throughout their community, and yet the government institutions were the ones that were informing the policy. The people that we know are paid, have plans that could be in cahoots with anybody, and And that I always felt that this was not real and it was not true. And I think now Americans are asking the question, what happened to the coronavirus? If everything you're saying is true, why aren't people down the streets?
Exactly right. Candace, one more segment with you, and I want to ask you what can be done. How do we bridge this gap? And I want to bring an example of something that I thought was amazing that happened early this week, and we'll talk about that coming up. First, let me tell you about our sponsor. Our spotlight sponsor here is realestateagentsthatItrust.com. RealestateagentsthatItrust.com is a company that was actually started by me and my brother about 5 or 6 years ago, and the results are really remarkable. It started because both of us were frustrated with real estate agents because we always seem to get somebody we're having to hound all the time. Hey, you remember our house? I mean, are you doing anything on that? And it really bothered us. And I happened to be doing work with the 500 best real estate agents in the country at the time, according to the Wall Street Journal. And I started to get to know them, and I started to talk to them. What is it that makes a good real estate agent? There's things I never even thought of. So we've put a system together where we have gone across the country, and we have about 1,200 real estate agents around the country that hit all of the marks on a checklist that we have that make the best real estate agent, at least the one in our opinion. I mean, one of those is, do they return calls? Do they actually do what they say? To me, that's really helpful in a real estate agent. Go to realestateagentsitrust.com. That's realestateagentsitrust.com. Free service to you. Do your own homework, but get the best one in your area. realestateagentsitrust.com. So no one was more surprised at what happened in Flint, Michigan than I was. I get up Monday morning and I see a friend of mine has made national news. He's a guy who actually has helped me a great deal with Operation Underground Railroad. We worked together in Mexico rescuing slaves. And his name is Chris Swanson. Well, he happens to be the sheriff for the county of Flint in Flint, Michigan. Look what happened when things started to go a little awry. As they were approaching the police station, he saw the tension start to rise. And so he said, just on a quick feeling and a prompting, I felt like I should go out and talk to everybody. Watch what happened.
The only reason we're here is to make sure that you got a voice. That's it. Don't think for a second that he represents who these cops are from all over the county and around this nation. We go out there to help people, not do that nonsense. We want to be with y'all for real. So I took my helmet off and laid the batons down. I want to make this a parade, not a protest.
He told me the next day, he said, I don't know what possessed me to say that. He said, but these people have been lied to over and over again. And he said, I think it would have been almost insane or deadly had I not believed those things. Because they're jaded and tired of hearing politicians and police officers say junk to them. Candace, what are your thoughts on what he did, and do you have any messages or any ideas of how we get through what we're going through?
You know, I think what he did demonstrates humanity, you know, trying to connect with people and to meet them at the level that they're on, even if you know that they've been jaded and lied to. You know, it's not their fault. And I understand that. And sometimes I know I can come across as very aggressive because it can be frustrating when you're dealing with it every day and looking at people that are so wrong. And they're not wrong because they have to be wrong. They're wrong because they're being told things that are wrong, and they're being told these things repeatedly. And how do we undo that? How do we undo this media conditioning upon Black Americans? How do we undo the societal conditioning that wants Americans to believe that we're this irredeemable, horribly racist, sexist, misogynist, backward society? The only thing that I think you can do is every single day, put into it what you want to get out of it. For me, it's making videos, it's speaking to my community, it's being hated, because I understand that, for every 100 people that hates what I said, I think one person is waking up. And more Candace Owens pop up across the nation. I think, for police officers, it's reminding them of your humanity sometimes, because they see you as an image that CNN is showing of the most horrible instances of police officers, which rarely ever happen. And that becomes the media depiction of what it means to be a police officer. But also, I think this opportunity right now for Black police officers to find their voices. People like to believe that the people that are policing these Black neighborhoods are white. The majority of them in Black neighborhoods look like the neighborhoods they police. In Chicago, which is one of the deadliest neighborhoods in the nation, Chicago District 11, all of the police officers are Black. I've visited them. So it's Black Americans' lives who suffer with this horrible narrative. I hope that through more conversation, through real statistics, and through human moments like that, we get to uplift everybody and show them that this is not what America is, and really the enemy of America is the mainstream media.
So my daughter said to me, my second oldest daughter, she's around 30, and she said to me last night, okay, so Dad, what does this mean? What do we do? I said, you have to know what's true. You have to stand up for what's true. You can't be afraid of the mob. She said, yeah, but what does that even mean? What do I do? What do people do?
Yeah. Listen, I'm happy. I have to say this. Might be a little bit of Black privilege, but I'm happy that I'm not white in these circumstances, because for white people, and I see them online, damned if they do and damned if they don't. If they use their voice and they say Black Lives Matter, they get trashed because they're too privileged and they don't understand. If they don't say anything, they get trashed because they're racist and they're in this impossible bind. I always say, think of a war, and as people are involved in many different levels. You have some people that donate to the war, that finance the war. You have people that are the writers, right? People like you who have a show, who are talking about the war. Everybody has a talent and can contribute in a different way. Don't think that if you're not on the front lines dealing with Black people that you can't help or you can't get involved.
Good for you. Candace, thank you so much. We'll talk again.